René Descartes, Spinoza, and Leibniz are one of the three great 17th century advocates of rationalism. In this video, we will study about the philosophy of Leibniz. Leibniz was a prominent German polymath and one of the most important logicians, mathematicians, and natural philosophers of the Enlightenment era. In this video, we will deal with his principles of non-contradiction. The fundamental principles of philosophy of Leibniz are known as principles of non-contradiction. They are the law of continuity, law of individuality, principles of harmony. God is the creator of the harmony. So these four primarily are the fundamental principles of philosophy of Leibniz. The first is the law of continuity. As we have already established, he was a very prominent mathematician and he developed the most prominent accomplishment that is called the ideas of differential and integral calculus. As a result, mathematics was his one main subject. So following this mathematical bent, he believed that there is a law of continuity. It was originally a generalization of the property of numbers. That is, they can be continued without end and divided without limit. In this respect, to the infinitely large, in which everything is contained, and to the infinitely smallest size of which everything is made up of. This observation, coupled with his calculus, ensured that there is no abrupt change, but every change is followed by another change. This change is followed by another change through an infinite number of infinitely imperceptible changes. So, basically, the law of continuity, according to Leibniz, confirms or affirms his thought that lines are generated by the movements of points, surfaces by the movements of lines, and solids by the movements of surfaces. So, it is here that he establishes that whatever exists due to the law of continuity. The second is the law of individuality. This principle too he draws from his mathematical discipline. In mathematics, a lengthy chain of reasoning can be compressed in extremely abbreviated formulas. He who knows them can at once draw out the much invaluable information and can achieve the logical and the intellectual satisfaction. This led him to establish the principle of individuality. According to the principle or the law of individuality, everything is real. To the cause of imagination, the connection between things is of one causal nexus. But everything is real and as such no external influence can change it. So basically, he, in spite of his opposition to Descartes and Spinoza's philosophy, looks upon the real in terms of self-containedness. However, this principle of individuality gives his system the appearance of a great contrast to Spinoza's philosophy. This is because Spinoza gives us the whole or the blank universe from which the parts have disappeared. On the other hand, we have Leibniz, who says that reality of parts is the real thing and the extreme multiplicity of the infinite experience, and by this he tries to determine their nature in order to discover the real parts of the real whole. Now, parts, in order to be real parts, must be as real as the whole of which they are the parts. Each part somehow must be the whole and must contain the whole. This insistence on the reality of individuals also made him believe in pluralism. Pluralism is a term which is used in philosophy, which means the doctrine of multiplicity. Often used in opposition to monism, monism basically believes in the doctrine of unity, and dualism, which basically believes in the doctrine of duality. In epistemology, pluralism is the position that there is not one consistent means of approaching truths about the world, rather there are very many in numbers. After having learned about the law of continuity and the law of individuality, the third is the principle of harmony. Unlike the above two principles, this principle of harmony partly arises from his mathematical discipline and partly from his desire to concede the Spinozistic truth of unity and partly from the necessity of reconciling the first two laws, that is, the law of continuity and the law of individuality. Leibniz maintained that everything is real for it contains the whole, and in some sense it can also be regarded as a whole itself. In other words, he is basically referring to a unity within itself. Now this unity in itself becomes plurality. And the unity in plurality is called the harmony. The law of harmony plays the same role in Leibniz philosophy which the abstract plays in the philosophy of Spinoza, just to make it easier for you. For this very reason, his philosophy has also been called the philosophy of pre-established harmony. The pre-established harmony is a philosophical theory about causation under which every substance affects only itself, but all the substances, both the minds and the bodies in the world, nevertheless seem to be causally interacting with each other because they have been programmed. Now, what does this "they have been programmed" mean? The answer lies in the last principle, that is, God is the creator of the harmony. Now, according to Leibniz, with the law of harmony, the inner circle of the thought of Leibniz is closed, but it seems certain that he believed in the existence of God. He further held that individual things no doubt are real, but they are knitted together in a grand harmony. This presupposes that some giant intellect has brought the harmony. And who is this some giant intellect? This giant intellect is called God according to him. Hence Leibniz, like Descartes and Spinoza, chooses to make his system theocentric in nature. In other words, their philosophies are God-centered. Theocentrism is the belief that God is the central aspect to existence. The concept of theocentrism is opposed to anthropocentrism, monotheism, or existentialism. According to the view of theocentrism, the meaning and value of actions done to people or the environment are attributed to God. To give you an example, in Christian theology, theocentrism has sometimes been used to describe theologies that focus on God the Father, which have been done by, for example, St. Augustine, St. Aquinas, etc. The reason why we say that Leibniz philosophy is theocentric in nature is because Leibniz is most noted for his optimism, that is, the conclusion that he draws from his philosophy that universe is the best possible one that could have been created by God himself. So to conclude, if we were to say that the principles of non-contradiction of Leibniz philosophy are the ones that deal with the law of continuity, the law of individuality, the principle of harmony, and God being the creator of that harmony. Please note that harmony can also be used as pre-established harmony. The reason why we say it is pre-established is because it has been established by God. God is that one big giant intellect that has brought this pre-existing harmony, or who has brought this harmony in the world. Question: which of these philosopher or philosophers have a theocentric philosophy? The correct answer is Descartes, Spinoza, and Leibniz. All these three are important rationalist philosophers. Descartes, Leibniz, and Spinoza choose to make their system theocentric in nature. In other words, we can say that their philosophies are God-centered.